What's up, everybody? The BetSided team is back for week 7 in college football and now week 6 in the NFL with our early leans for the week. Ben, along with Ian, Peter, Donovan, and Reed, it's great to have all of you guys with us. We're going to go through our early leans starting with the NFL, but there's always more analysis that you can find over at fansided.com/betsided, as well as across all our social media platforms at BetSided on Twitter, at BetSided on Instagram, and at BetSided on TikTok as well. And don't forget, if you guys like these videos, please go ahead and hit the thumbs up button along with subscribing and leaving your comments for us to respond to. So, Ian, let me start over with you in the National Football League. Jacksonville +3. They're going up against Miami. You got the two Florida teams going across the pond to London. How do you see this matchup playing up? At least we're betting on it.
Yeah, I don't know what English football fans did to deserve these games that we're giving them. Because if you could come up with probably the two worst matchups possible, be the Jets Falcons, which they got last week, and now we're going to treat them to the Jaguars and Dolphins. But this is, as you kind of alluded to, a complete toilet bowl of a game. And anytime there's a toilet bowl of a game in the NFL, I'm just going to go ahead and back the team getting the point. So I am going to take the Jaguars +3. The Dolphins might be the worst team in the NFL, and no one has fully realized that yet. Dead last in average scoring margin, second last in yards per game, second last in points per game. Their offense can't move the ball. It is a disaster. And Trevor Lawrence has looked good each week throughout the season. He's looking a little bit better and a little bit better. I think he can finally get his first win as an NFL quarterback here. So I'm going to back the Jaguars and the points in what's going to be an ugly game over in London.
Yeah, those London games always seem to kind of work out in Jacksonville's favor. They can't seem to win a game in the United States, but you move over to London, they tend to play a little bit better. At least we'll see if they can cover the +3 against Miami this week. Donovan, I'm going to you next. The Steelers, all of a sudden, the Steelers looked like they were never going to win a game again. They ended up coming through in week 5. How do you see this playing out for week 6? They are 4.5-point favorites against the Russell Wilson-less Seattle Seahawks at home.
Yeah, we put up a piece on BetSided today about how the Seahawks odds are falling now that Russell's hurt. And so the sports books are fading Seattle, and I'm going to have to do the same thing. And mainly it's just because of Geno Smith. The last time that Geno started a game, finished that game, and won that game was in week 17 of 2014. It's been 7 years since he did that. And so I don't see any reason why you can trust him or why you can, put your faith in Geno. The Seahawks are still giving up 450 yards a game. They're the worst defense in the NFL. And Ben actually looked competent last week against the Broncos. He looked like he can make a couple plays. Pittsburgh's defense is top 10 in points allowed and top 5 in touchdowns allowed. So I like Pittsburgh this week to get the win against Seattle.
All right, so let's see what the Steelers can get 2 in a row. Peter, I'm going to you next. It's a public Pete play this week. You got the Dallas Cowboys -3.5. They're on the road this week against New England. That needed a second half comeback to take care of Houston on the road. So not quite sure what to make of this Patriots team after playing Tom Brady so well on Sunday night in Foxborough. They struggle, eventually end up getting the win, but did not cover against Houston. But Dallas, the lone undefeated team against the spread in the NFL, you're going right back to them.
Yeah, Ben, you make a great point. We don't really know what to see from this Patriots team because one week they look really good. The next week they look terrible. They gave up 312 passing yards and 3 touchdowns to Davis Mills last week. I mean, the Texans were able to move the ball extremely easy on them. And now you have to face a Dallas team that's 3rd in the league in yards per play, 2nd in the league in total yards. They've scored over 30 points in their last 3 games. I just don't know if the Patriots offense is going to be able to keep up with Dallas if they can't find a way to get stops. I know they got stops against Tom Brady and the Bucs, but that was the game where everybody in New England was hyped up for it. Like, you knew the Patriots were going to come out to play that night. I don't know if that happens against Dallas. The Pats are 0-3 at home this year. Give me the Cowboys. It's only 3.5. I don't mind. Don't mind that. If it had been a little bit more, maybe I'm a little bit eerie on it. But at 3.5, I'll take Dallas to stay 6-0 against the spread.
All right, Reed, I'm going to you next. You have the Cleveland Browns. They're 2.5-point favorites at home against the Arizona Cardinals. We talked about it on the show last week. A lot of us were going on the opposite side of Arizona despite their undefeated record. But Cleveland at home, they're 2.5-point favorites. At one point, that line was up to 3. It's since moved in the other direction. But are you banking on Cleveland after giving up 47 points to the Chargers last week, or are you going to ride with Arizona?
No, I'm going with Cleveland. I'm going with the home team. This one's been dancing 2.5, 3. So make sure you get the best number. But this Arizona team, their luck's gonna run out soon. 1 for 5, the Niners were last week on fourth down conversions against Arizona. That was the difference in the game. It was a close game throughout, very competitive. Arizona lets up a few of those fourth downs. This may be a different result. So Cleveland, really crazy back and forth game, but they have the edge here on the ground. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt going to take advantage of Arizona's 28th in defensive success rate this season on the ground. So I like Cleveland to run all over Arizona. They're top 5 in adjusted sack rate. So I like Myles Garrett to get into the backfield. And Arizona, they're finally getting a loss this year, knocked off the ranks.
Yeah, I agree with that pick as well. Cleveland, one of my favorite bets of the week. I'm going to take another team that I think for a while we were all on the opposite side of, but knowing where the public's likely going to go this week, they just saw the Buffalo Bills fresh off of a demolishing performance on the road at Arrowhead Stadium in a game that the Chiefs kind of needed to get themselves right and weren't able to do so. Right now, you can get Tennessee at +5 over at WinBet. It's going to be a challenge because right now the Bills are the second best team in the NFL at stopping the run. They're a top 3 team against the pass as well. But this is why you have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. If this is going to be an opportunity for them to show up, they have to do it this week. And remember, we were having similar conversations last year, you guys, about the Buffalo Bills. They ended up coming to Tennessee and got just trounced 42-16. Titans might have a number on Buffalo, and I think this is a good opportunity while everybody is siding on the Bills to go ahead and zag this week and take Tennessee. So those are our college football pick, or excuse me, our NFL picks for week 6. Let's go ahead and move on to the college football side. Ian, I'm going back to you. You have an interesting battle. Texas A&M, fresh off of knocking off Alabama. They're now 10-point underdogs at home at Faurot Field in Mizzou. Do the Tigers have a chance to go ahead and take care of the Aggies this week?
I think the Tigers are going to cover as underdogs here. 10-point underdogs. I know, listen, Texas A&M, I know they beat the big, bad Alabama Crimson Tide last week, but let's pump the brakes on setting them as 10-point road favorites against a solid Missouri team that's probably better than what their record indicates. The Tigers are actually 41st in the country in yards per play, averaging 5.9, which is a higher mark than the Texas A&M offense. And don't forget, Texas A&M has looked terrible on the road so far this season. They barely squeaked by Colorado. They lost to Arkansas on the road, so they haven't surpassed 10 points while playing on the road yet this season. And now they're 10-point favorites at Missouri. I don't buy it. I think this is a good sell high spot on Texas A&M. So give me the Tigers +10 in this matchup.
Donovan, I'm going to go back to you for another Big 12 game. A heartbreaker last week. I certainly think that you were on the right side with your Texas Longhorns, but you're going back to the Big 12. Iowa State, a 5.5-point favorite this week against the K-State Wildcats. How do you see it going down?
Yeah, listen, I'm rocking with the Cyclones this week. I really like their defense. Their defense allows 17 points per game. They're 4th in the country in opponent yards per play. They're 3rd in opponent yards per game. Kansas State's on a 2-game losing streak. I don't really like the way that they're looking right now. And what I think is going to be the key in this game is third down conversions. Kansas State is 103rd in the country on third down, allowing opponents to convert on 45% of their third downs. Iowa State is 6th in the country, keeping that number down to 28%. I think if Iowa State can get off the field and get the ball back to their offense that's averaging over 38 points a game, the Cyclones are going to be just fine.
Peter, I'm going to go to you next in a tradition unlike any other here at BetSided. It's somebody on our team picking against the Indiana Hoosiers. Your turn happens to be this week. Michigan State, a 4.5-point road favorite at IU. Spartans continue to roll despite what a lot of us may have thought that they'd some point hit a buzzsaw, but you're going to continue to roll with them this week.
Yeah, I think if Michigan State is going to lose a game, it's going to be to Michigan next week. I think they get a great spot here against Indiana. They're only 4.5-point favorites, and Indiana might not have Michael Penix Jr., their quarterback. He was injured against Penn State. If he doesn't play, there's a lot of uncertainty on offense for an Indiana team that's 2-3 right now. On top of that, Michigan State, their 3 best games, they're 3-0 against the spread on the road. They won all 3 of those games, obviously. They've looked the best on the road. They struggled against Nebraska at home. I really think that this is a spot for Michigan State where they win this game 7-0. You go into that game against Michigan, huge rivalry game. I don't see why against a backup quarterback they can't cover the spread in this one. So I'm gonna take the Spartans.
All very valid points. I would contend that Jack Tuttle remains one of the best backup quarterbacks, a top 5 recruit coming in, but Utah before transferring over to Indiana. And he did get a big road win last year for the Hoosiers at Wisconsin. So speaking of Wisconsin, Reed, you're going to stick in the Big 12. Purdue going to Iowa this week. Iowa with a huge home win in the number 3 versus number 4 game between Penn State. They're 12.5-point favorites this week against the Boilermakers, but it appears that you are going to be fading the Hawkeyes for this week. Why is that?
Yeah, I'm not a huge trends guy, but in some spots they do make sense. So let's talk about Purdue coach Jeff Brom. 8-5 against the spread off of buys dating back to his time at Western Kentucky. Gets to Purdue, he's 8-3 versus ranked opponents, most of them coming in Big Ten play. And just straight up, he's 3-1 against Iowa since getting to Purdue. He has their number, and Iowa might be a little banged up. The number 1 rated cornerback by Pro Football Focus in the country, Riley Moss, he's out this week most likely with a knee injury he suffered in the Penn State game. Purdue likes to throw the ball. If they take care of the ball, Iowa, best turnover margin in the country, but their offense is terrible, outside the top 100 success rate. So Purdue limits turnovers. They play the field position game, low total. I'll happily take all these points. So give me Purdue to get a cover here.
All right, that's a good pick from you, Reed. I'm going to go with a little bit of SEC action. You have Tennessee +3. Just going to stay in the Rocky Top State for the rest of this video. Tennessee +3 against Ole Miss, coming off a remarkable win at home against Arkansas, in which 2 teams just went back and forth all game long. And Reed, I'm actually going to steal this stat from you, which you can read over at BetSided.com. Very up-tempo game. We're talking about a total of around 80.5. But if you actually look at S&P Plus defensive ratings, these 2 teams, they go back and forth, but Tennessee, a far better defense, ranking 23rd compared to Ole Miss at 67th. They get the stop late that Arkansas was not able to get against Ole Miss this week. So even though it's going to be up-tempo and both of these quarterbacks are going to have outstanding performances, this is just a game that Tennessee needs a little bit more. It's under the lights. It's in Tennessee over at Rocky Top. I think Ole Miss, they're obviously going to keep it close, and Corral is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. But give me the Vols in an ideal spot to be a home underdog for this week. So there you go. Those are our college and NFL early leans for the week. 14-10 on the season so far in the NFL. In college, 13-17-1 against the spread, but plenty more football still to be played, and plenty more football for you guys to either view right here on YouTube or to check us out by going to fansided.com/betsided. For the rest of the team, I'm Ben. We'll talk to you guys next week. May all of your bets hit.